1. Hey everyone, welcome back to Adobe Live. I'm Jack, and today I'm joined by mixed media illustrator Ellie Reis. Ellie worked on the splash screen for the Photoshop beta, and we will be going through that whole process, really peeling back the layers so you get behind the scenes. You can find links to Ellie's work in the description, and our mod should post that in the chat for you as well. You have a very maximalist style, Ellie. Your work really like fills the page. I was looking at some of your work on your website. Has that always been your style?
Unfortunately, yes. I'm a very ADHD child. Pretty much every adult in my life found out in about the first 10 minutes of meeting me that I will sit still if I'm drawing, but they wouldn't give me more paper because they wanted me to focus to some degree. So I just got in the habit of like if there's white space, it's going away.
Nice. Yeah, I feel
Mhm.
that. Like, I feel like you were probably had lots of sketchbooks as a child.
Oh yeah, there were so many different things that I would draw on, especially in high school. I started learning how to spray paint in middle school, so I
Oh,
was a
very
mess.
cool.
Yeah.
All
The
right,
high school
well,
definitely has some damage for me.
I'm gonna pull up your screen so we can get into it today, since I know we got a lot of ground to cover.
We do.
So I will hand it over to you.
Fantastic. Welcome to the stream, guys. If you haven't picked it up already, I'm Ellie Reis. I'm a mixed media maximalist illustrator. The Photoshop team approached me about launching this new Spotlight series through the splash screen promos, and I'm genuinely beyond honored to kick off such a fantastic opportunity for artists around the globe. Make sure you apply in. Hopefully, we have some links to do that down in the chat. But a little bit about me. I'm a fully self-taught illustrator. As far as Photoshop goes, I mostly learned through YouTube videos. I did get an art and technology degree from the University of Oregon, and during my time there, I spent 3 years as a Photoshop tutor to the undergraduates. My love of Photoshop was already fairly present, but really was baked into my process through my professor, Craig Hickman, who was the founder of the art and technology department at the University of Oregon, but is also the inventor of KidPix.
Oh my
One of,
gosh,
I
that's so
know,
cool. I
he
actually
was,
have like a OG KidPix software, like the box. I
that's so
found it
sweet.
like a couple years ago, so yeah.
He just made that for his kid.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, like his kid wanted to draw, so he just kind of built the software. It was like, maybe there's an audience for this. But it was so cool. He was genuinely sweet. I was so lucky to be in the very last class of his before he retired, right before COVID. But that class was how to code Photoshop from scratch. And that was
What a cool class.
so it was such a cool class. There were like 6 people in it, so it was very one-on-one personal. And learning the actual method that the program uses, like the coding and the math behind all these different blend layers, has been so quintessential to my process building and my understanding of how to move something that I initially learned as a very physical medium into a digital space. And I'm here to share it on or pass on that knowledge. I learned mostly through YouTube videos, so I'm hoping today can be kind of a baseline for anyone of any skill level to take something that they have drawn and put it into this larger environment in a very fast way. So starting with that, boom, here are my sketches. Fun fact, I had about 30 hours before meeting the Photoshop team to pitch this illustration to them. So all of these were made the night before,
We
which
love a
was
deadline.
we love a deadline. It just kind of happens that way. And at the time, I was listening to a lot of like history for sleep videos, just to go to bed. And a lot of those are Victorian dating rituals. Some of them are basically like soft novels that they're just like reading aloud and they're like, this was the etiquette of the time, guys.
Hmm.
I don't go to sleep when those ones play because they're too interesting. I get invested in the characters. But I really was very inspired by it at the time, and also a lot of people in my artist cohort group or whatever you want to call it, having your own art show in your apartment is very popular right now, mostly because accessibility, right? And I live here in Hollywood. I have a very chic style 1920s apartment, You can't really see it, but like up above me, I have a sconce lighting fixture.
Nice.
So I actually took a lot of the photos that were put into this piece from my bedroom,
Mm.
right? Like from my studio space and incorporated that in. So all these things together really came into something fun, and I always start by working in my iPad, right? I did a lot of wrist damage to myself in college by using just a little Wacom tablet as well as screen printing. Um, if you're just getting started, you can absolutely make a full-scale professional level piece with just a little Wacom tablet. There is no doubt about that. If you plan on doing more than one every 3 months, though, getting something like an iPad is a very smart investment because you will hurt yourself. I unfortunately hurt myself, but that's just my passion, right? And when we're making a bigger piece like this, I always try and start off the beginning phases mostly as composition, kind of researching the general vibes and especially the furniture I want in these things. The furniture is always the pivot point to how you're going to move around that space, and I guess the overall like the color palettes, the aesthetics, the patterns, all these really big things can kind of come together through these base pieces that you're researching. I also really like drawing what I call the active parts of the environment. So as you can see, I'm drawing the character out right now and anything that she's interacting with in these spaces. So maybe like her coffee mug, the TV remote, her iPad, like these are the things that I prefer to draw into the environment versus just finding a PNG and placing that in. It makes it feel like, if she is also drawn, you can tell that her touch has been here. So there's kind of a unique sense of story building that we can do solely by these smaller details, right? And when working in my iPad, I start out with the line art, I start out with the flats, I start out with the colors. So you can see here, I'm kind of putting in all these base shadows and the more organic shapes that would be a lot harder to do on my desktop after I transfer from my iPad. And here is my cat reference, which is her name is Charlotte. Um,
Is that your
anyway,
cat?
that is my partner's cat,
Okay.
so it's basically my cat, right? Um, but anyways, once we get to this base stage, this is what it looks like for the most part when I'm transferring it to my desktop to actually start working. And I was talking to Jack ahead of time. This is a huge document. I did not prepare this illustration knowing that I would be walking people through it on like an international live stream, right? So a lot of this did have to be cleaned up and organized. It was already labeled. It was already labeled, all the layers. I do really encourage naming your layers as you go, right? That's going to be so helpful. But if you look over here, there's a lot of different layers, and this
Yeah.
is this is compressed from the original. So we're gonna start here with what I call the photo bash, right? And this is the loose assets that I'm pulling from the internet to figure out what that space looks like. And at this stage, you can see all the original colors. Like I haven't touched anything up. I haven't done like a super great job at like removing the backgrounds from any of these, and that's okay. We're not really looking for that at this stage. We're doing as much as we can ahead of time to set the scene so that we can move into this feeling of I don't have to change anything as I go because the environment has been built and I'm feeling confident about that.
So at this
So,
stage, with this process, you're looking to set the composition really, and are you also looking at like color and
Um, color is really an afterthought.
Okay.
Color is coming a little bit later down the line, especially because we're using a mixed media process here, meaning that we are pulling assets that are already having this color in mind. So as you're pulling things and it's coming together, you want to be thinking about it, but it's too soon to lock yourself in. And
Gotcha.
as we're gonna see, I did change some of the colors on these. Like this folding wall becomes more of like a pinky hue as we go on. And most importantly, and we're going to get to this, is the lighting. The lighting is going to have such a huge impact on the finalized colors
Hmm.
that if you lock yourself in too early to like, I want this specific color palette, and then you go back for the lighting, you're going to have a significantly harder time dialing that in a way that feels natural.
Gotcha. So yeah, this is mostly composition, and I love the notes too. There's like a mix of like a little bit of sketch. There's like the photos, right? You're
Mhm.
really trying to get a sense of like this is like really for you at this
Yes, I
point.
forget
Yeah.
too. I need notes. I need notes for myself,
No, me.
right?
I do. This is the same thing I do. I'm like putting text everywhere. I think that people don't realize how much of a sketch is text.
Genuinely, I'm just glad I spelled everything on this one, right? Right. And even here, like there's a couple of details that I ended up kind of moving away from as the piece progressed. So like I wanted the door to this cabinet thing to be open and the cat to be playing with a ribbon falling down. I thought that would be cute. But sometimes you just move through the space and you're like, that's too much effort. I don't want to be doing this. And the beauty of doing personal pieces like this is you have the full luxury of saying, I don't want to do this and I'm not going to be doing that, which is another great reason why we start with the photo bashing phase. And that's another great note where even when decorating a physical space, this is my room across the board, don't do more than 75%. I am a maximalist. I know this about myself. I'm going to go overboard. The muchness and the detail and these little pieces that really make it come together, like the juicy little bits on top, that's going to come as you work. So if you plan for it ahead of time, so at this stage, if I had all those details, we're going to get too overwhelmed with it. We're not going to be able to see what we need to see clearly. And what we need to see clearly at this point is just building that base. So we're going to start from the literal base, which is just the walls, the actual physical walls of this space. So like I said before, I just took photographs of my bedroom for this. I have like a landlord special stucco wall, and that felt right for this. And here's the sconce as well.
Yeah, now we can see it.
So yeah, what I did here is I ended up altering this a little bit so you can see the smart filters. Immediately it's a lot brighter,
Mhm.
right? Immediately there's a sense of warmth that's really missing from that base sketch. And another really big piece for me personally was the window. I really wanted one of these like very intricate Victorian style windows,
Mhm.
but this is a really important piece of context that we have as we're building from the base. Where you see this right here, we have molding pre-established. Like we already have some stylistic things that we need to match for the rest of this to feel natural. So I did some digging and boom, look at that.
Nice.
It's not exactly the same,
Mhm.
but it's pretty similar. And then I actually just kind of ripped this chunk over here and moved it over here. It looks a little crazy for now, but once the furniture is in, that's going to be blocked. And that's
Mm.
another professional tip. It doesn't have to be perfect on every level. Like
Right.
you can very easily hide the things that you're struggling with, or you don't have to like make it a perfect clean, perfect selection, any of these things. It's ultimately going to be a time suck. So do what you need to do to feel right and don't overexert yourself nitpicking every single layer. Moving on from there, I really wanted the sconce to like kind of be coming to the forefront. We got a little bit more of a texture just to make it feel right. And then this is one of my personal favorite tools. If you go into edit, and then it's not selected right now, but we have content aware fill. All you have to do to activate that is use your selection tool or your lasso tool to select the area you want it to sense. And then based on the layer you're already on top of, you're going to hit that content aware fill and boom, it's going
Nice.
to automatically expand that out with the color. And another really great tool you can use to get to this point is under image adjustments match color. And that's going to load in this where you can put in the source. It could be a whole different Photoshop document.
Mm.
And then you can pull from the different layer and it will automatically extract the color onto that layer. And this is
Okay.
another reason why it's really beneficial to name your
Yeah,
layers.
yeah. And if you have them named, you
Mm,
know exactly what you're pulling from. Otherwise, you're like, oh,
exactly.
it must be layer 50,000.
We'll figure it out, right? You kind of just have to hope as you go.
Yeah.
But this is the first step you should be doing after your sketch. Just lay down that base, build out that dollhouse and then you furnish it, right? And from here, sometimes I like to be lazy and I'll just take things from the photo bash and drag it out into the actual worlds. I can't always advocate for that though, because sometimes it's not going to be as high resolution as you
Mm.
want it to be. So at this point, I'm just populating everything. I love looking at the non-line art layers, right? Line art somewhere up
We've
here.
got some comments
Here we
in
go.
the chat. Lots of folks are joining us. So organized in there. Somebody's complimenting your organization.
Thank you. Usually, I would say it's about 70% of this. Jack and I were joking before this chat that I would have been so lost if I didn't do this process. We really needed to be organized to hit that 45-minute window because I want to make sure you guys actually see everything. But when we're coming up, one of the things I do want to flag as well, especially when you're doing illustrations like this, as you just saw, I keep all of my colors on one single layer, right?
Hmm. Okay.
And it seems like it's not editable as much, but that's a lie. That's a fallacy. What I like to do is keep it in these big chunks,
Hmm.
keep it all on one layer, and then if we don't like the color of something, we use our magic wand tool. We just select that flat chunk so we have our shading on a different level. Usually I do my
Okay.
brush textures on a different level, but like I was feeling a little bit lazy. We go adjustments, hue saturation, and now you can adjust the color of any of these
Nice.
flat parts of the illustration with as minimal effort as possible. And that is one of the big things that I really want to emphasize when you're building a big piece like this. You really need to build for that flexibility later down the line because you're going to be going back and forth from different parts of this a lot of the time. And if you lock yourself into like one little layer that you're going to have to completely redraw it to get back into and fix, you're going to be miserable. You're going to be absolutely miserable, and it's going to take you a week longer than expected. So these little tricks and things that you can do that is built into Photoshop that utilizes the tools is going to expedite your process so much. And a really great other tip that I have for people
Good
is
old
here,
magic wand.
go magic wand for real. Um, when it comes to Wait, sorry, I'm a little lost in my notes. Okay. When it comes to decorating, like I said before, 75%. Do not do more than that. You're going to get really overwhelmed in just this base sketch. And now that I'm here, my characters are adjusted. She feels proportionate to the environment. The cat feels proportionate to the environment. I know like how I would physically move through this space. And that's another really great tip. You need to decorate the way you would decorate your own room. So if you're going to put like a giant refrigerator right here in front of her, how is she going to get onto that couch, right? Like your decisions need to make
I
sense
love
in the
that thought
real world,
process.
right? It's a great thought process, but another really great detail over here in this cabinet is I wanted this to be an artist studio. Like
Mhm.
it's a Victorian drawing room, but it's also a literal drawing room because it's a studio.
Mhm.
And this is where I wanted to kind of showcase the different art supplies she used. And this is where I love talking about blend modes versus opacity. So right here we have a glass cabinet. We know these things are sitting behind glass. So to just drop it into the environment like this, that looks wrong.
Mhm.
That looks so wrong. Sometimes what we can do is we play with these blend modes, and blend modes are going to be so important for a piece like this. But as I'm looking through it, nothing's quite feeling right. Like maybe we can kind of roll with the exclusion, but it's still not quite there. When you're hiding something behind glass, all you really have to do is just turn that opacity down. It's pretty simple. It's really that straightforward. And I only know this and have come to this conclusion because most of my process is sitting here playing with these blend modes and then just trying different opacities, right?
Do you
Um,
have a go-to blending modes, or do you just base them on the, you know?
Good question. I think Multiply and
Mhm.
Color Burn are two of my favorites. Vivid Light is a really good one, but across the board, like if you have loyalty to one of these modes, it will trip you up in the long term. It's just not worth the effort. You never know, and like different things are going to give you different results. And there is one final layer. Ooh, I'm teasing the end of my presentation. This over here, this is going to make a world of difference.
Okay.
And depending on which one you go for, completely different vibes, right? So it really is just a matter of preference. And another thing that I wanted to show you guys that I kind of breezed past is when you're doing a big piece like this, having really clean selections is super important. And by that, I mean removing the background. So
Yeah, I
even
was
on a
gonna
piece like
ask
this,
how you
mhm,
got it, so the intricate details on that, how you got them removed so well. You just remove the
I
background.
the short answer is I'm crazy. The long answer is we have so many fantastic selection tools at our disposal, right? Where we have the magic wand over here, you can use the quick selection. I personally always use this lasso tool. If you haven't tried it before, I really suggest it. We have the regular lasso tool, which lets us make organic shapes. We have this polygonal lasso tool, which is great for something like this, where I know I need to go in and do all these individual like selections.
Hmm.
And sometimes you use the magic wand and it doesn't get the whole thing.
Hmm.
Selection, modify, and then contract and expand is going to be really, really helpful. But above all, the best tip I can give you guys is you need to be able to see what you're doing. And that sounds kind of like, well, duh. But honestly, using this drop shadow feature is so important to getting a really clean selection because now I can actually go in and see I missed the white over here. And this goes back to what I said earlier, where it's like you don't have to kill yourself to get a really good piece. Like there is a level of like uncleanliness that we can keep in here and
Hmm.
still be good. But by using this outer glow tool, I can really quickly see where this isn't actually wrapping all the way. So you can
Gotcha.
still see a little bit of the white on all these borders. It's okay in this instance, like this piece is so big as detail and small in scale, where the splash screen is only about 1500 pixels, right? That we can get away with something like this.
Yeah, that's also something important to consider is like how
Hmm.
large the piece is actually going to end up being, the final output.
Right.
How much detail do you really need?
I I almost always make my pieces in double the size of the final output, mostly because I love selling prints. I
Mm,
love selling
yeah.
prints, and I always want that detail, and I would much rather have a bigger piece that I
Hmm.
then compress down a little bit for the final deliverable, but still have the higher resolution version available, rather than going the other way around. And now we're at this stage, which is what I call decorating 2.0. And this is where we get maximalist, right? This is where we start having a lot more fun with actually putting all these smaller details that gives personality to the room. And one of the things when I was a younger artist that I always was very fascinated about is Jamie Hewlett, who did Tank Girl, and Atsushi Okubo, who did Soul Eater, are my two main references. These are the two people I look up to the most. And they always have these really phenomenal, vivid, lived in environments with all this cool factor. And I
Hmm.
would always sit there and be like, how'd they know how to make it so cool? Like how did they pick these things? I have no clue how they came to these conclusions. And I have the secret and I'm going to share it with you guys now. And the secret is you need to put yourself into it, right? So the best example I can give is Jamie Hewlett is a big Clint Eastwood fan. A lot of his earlier art, especially from the early 2000s, all have those movie reference actually baked into it. And then here, like this skirt that she's wearing right now, I own that skirt. That's my skirt. I'm really bad at styling it. I can never find an outfit that goes with it, but I love it and I always want to see it incorporated
Hmm.
into something. So I gave it to my
Nice.
baby, my child, my character, just to see what it would be like, right? And now I know, oh, that's maybe how I should style that. But also I just gave a piece of myself to this piece,
That's a good
right?
way to think about
And
it.
there's all these other little details in here too, right? Where the theme itself is something I was experiencing in the time. I literally put my own face into it. I love hiding myself into it. I love hiding other pieces of my art inside the art, especially like when there's little posters and things. Like that's basically my cat, right?
Hmm.
We'll call it my cat. That's basically my cat, right? But you know you're doing it right when you finish the piece and you look back at it and it feels like a time capsule of your life at the moment. And it's so fun as an artist watching my own progression now because I can look back at something I made 5 years ago and I'm instantly brought back to the media I was watching, the music I was listening to, something that happened with my friends. Like I have such strong associations with these pieces that you feel it as well. Like this feels like a lived-in environment. This feels like something that someone went out of their way to decorate because there is that love baked in. And I really want to emphasize that to any of you today, that every single person has such a unique and interesting life. Everyone has inspiration that they pull from, things that they see, culture that they come from. Anything and everything combines to be who you are. And it's so easy to overlook that when you live in it. But when you put it outside of yourself, you could come back to it in a way that feels so impactful. And that's how I love making my pieces personally.
Yeah, I've heard some people refer to it as their visual library that like lives
Yeah,
inside of their head, right? So it's like
that's a
all of
great
the
one.
experiences, and that's why it's also so important to like not just like to like step away from your work, right? So that you can have
Yes.
these experiences that kind of become a part of your visual library, and you pull maybe not even consciously but subconsciously like colors and like
Yes.
textures and like
Hmm.
the way that the image feels kind of like the imperfections, right? Like understanding like the way that an environment feels like lived in as opposed to like
Yes.
perfect. Like I could find a reference of like, a cat and draw it and have it be the perfect cat, but that doesn't really
Hmm.
like add to the story that you're trying to tell, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I
Hmm.
think oh, we've got some, yeah, I
Invest in
love that thought
yourself.
process. So,
That's fantastic. And on that thought process, I have a couple of tips for incorporating these types of things, right? So over here on her easels, like I said, I like to upcycle my own art. These pieces were just way too saturated for the environment. It didn't look good. Something as simple as like filter and then going into that filter gallery and just kind of pixelating it a little bit, as you can see here, is awesome. You can distort it. Pixelate mosaic is another one I personally really like. And as always, you're gonna have to come back and adjust the colors as you go. So right now it looks pretty muted. I didn't want it to distract from everything overall, but as we start adding in more of these lighting sources, it's going to feel more natural as we go,
hmm.
right? And another really fantastic tip I can give to you guys is like this blanket's a little flat, right? Let's use masks to put in some really cool textures. So as you can see here, whoops, we got this little area and I could turn this on. This is a rug that I found that I just
Hmm.
couldn't find like an appropriate place for within the physical environment,
Hmm.
but I really loved the texture of it. And the benefit of using a mask is I can still transform it and I can move that there. Oop, the zoom stuff is blocking my access.
Oh no,
There
you
we
should be able
go.
to move it without any issue.
We are good. I love
Okay.
using this tool up here. What is that called? Switch
Isn't it just
between
like
free transform and warp modes.
okay?
Yes. Warp is one of the most helpful tools in all of this building. So I can go back in and reshape this and kind of like make it balloon out so it
Mm-hmm.
has that right texture. And when I'm happy with it, we just enable that layer mask. Whoops,
Nope.
I did it wrong. I forgot to unlink it first. Oh well. Sometimes you're going to have to experiment and go back and forth with these things, right? But again, one of the best ways to get a lot of impact for very little effort is by using those mask modes to just drop in some extra textures. So we have that for this blanket and we have that for these shoes. Another great tip I love is I love jewelry. I love metallics. I just put it in a flat layer, like this. So we just choose kind of like that baseline gold color. And then we double click and go into the layer style, bevel and emboss, and you can just play around with these settings. I'll open it back up. But as you can see now, it's kind of automatically shaded. So we have those darks in there, we have those lights. I can turn it up. I can make them bigger. I can change like the actual way that it's being made. I have so much more flexibility to do something that is normally kind of difficult and a really big time suck for me, but something that adds a lot more dimension to the piece. And again, we're not locked in. So if later the lighting changes and this doesn't feel right to me anymore, I can go back and clean that up as I want to. And that is another really important thing for filling out this space. And I think for the most part it feels well decorated, right? Like I'm happy with it. But we're missing one of the most important aspects, and that's going to be lighting sources. And this is probably the difficult area of doing a piece like this. Like I can call it quits here. It's cute, it's fun, but you know what it is. It feels pretty flat for the most part. And I'm gonna demonstrate with doing lighting first. So this Turkish lamp, such a cool statement piece, right? Really tied the room together. Normally, I would do shadows before I do lighting, but for this demonstration purpose, I needed to show the lighting before I could do the shadows, mostly for this Turkish lamp. And this is another really great example of using our blend modes and our selection tools to make something that really emphasizes and feels realistic to this space. So the way we did it for the most part is we just had this base image. And once again, we could go in and use that outer glow tool, right? We go in and we trigger it, and through that, we can see all these tiny little pieces and where it wasn't properly cut out. So again, we don't need to go into every single one, but using the outer glow tool is going to give us a really easy and quick like look at what's working, what's proper, and like what isn't. And that's going to be a lot more difficult on a piece like this because I chose this picture specifically because it has those really cool light effects around it, right? All of this. I wanted that in the piece so bad. I was like, this is so, so cool. And we're just using a pin light here. That's what felt right to me. But like a linear light was kind of cool if we turned it down more. Vivid light isn't quite right. Soft light, it's not giving that kind of oomph factor that we want. Overlay would have been a more natural choice, not gonna lie. But I wanted something that kept the really intricate shapes that the Turkish lamp produces of those lights. And for that, we needed to keep this texture in there. And again, opacity is going to make a really big difference in like how this actually feels. So at 100%, no one's buying this, right? But if we turn it down to about 70%, that feels right. And something that I'm clocking here right now that I think I worked out on a different layer is like we see this kind of hard edge over here. We don't like that. Things like that are what kind of dissolves that like sense of illusion. So I just take the smudge tool. That's it. That's all we have to do. And be aware when you're doing that if it's kind of destroying that image quality. Like if you're doing this on a layer that's not lighting, you still can, but it's going to kind of smear that stuff. That's intentional, right? Just make sure that it's not bleeding into an area that's important. And one way that we can do that without compromising any of the rest of the quality is we can just take the lasso and like kind of give ourselves a bigger area in the area we want to drag it into and then smudge out, right? And if we are working up against like a hard layer over here, it stops where the lasso stops, so we don't have to worry about compromising the pixel integrity of that. And then I added a little bit of extra shadow at the base just to feel right. And that's not going to make a lot of sense visually until we start adding in the shadows. But again, I usually start with the shadows and then go into lighting.
Okay.
And another really big piece of what makes this so, so special is this light bulb right here. Like this is an important light source. We have our door all the way down here as well, and like that kind of just has this glare over here. But uh-oh, if we're looking carefully, the paneling, or sorry, the molding right here isn't quite matching up what it is over here, right? Like this is a bit more of a beige, it's a bit more warmth. All we have to do here is just overlay the color. It's really the less amount of work you do possible, the better. And now even this window glare looks a little bit more natural because we have that beige to really balance it out, right? So now we have this lighting source accounted for, we have this lighting source accounted for. We're going to move on to this light bulb. And it looks great. It's really tying the piece together. I used a color dodge in opacity. I'm gonna turn that off real quick just so y'all can actually see the layer.
Mm.
So if you look over here, it's kind of hitting just those contours of her face, right? This is how I did it, and this is a sped up video version of it. But I physically went in there. So how this type of thing works, again, we're working smarter, not harder. All we're gonna do is take a gradient with that yellow, move it from the light bulb, rasterize it, and then I go in and by hand cut out those areas that it should not be hitting. So it is a bit of a time-intensive process, but there just isn't a way to do this and feel quite natural without spending the time to invest in this type of like more laborious thing. And that's one of the other reasons why I really emphasize build your process in a way that you can go back and edit it more naturally. Just so when you do come to things like this, you have the time to spend on the really, really intricate parts, and you're not going to feel like it's a crunch and you have to do this for every single layer. Wherever you can save that effort, you absolutely should. And then once we have all the cutouts, all we're doing is going to filter, blur, and get like a little bit of a Gaussian blur on there. It's just going to be too harsh if you don't do it that way. And you can see it's kind of softened up over here, right? We want that naturally. And the benefit of using the color dodge is it localizes to the area, right? So now it becomes this like really nice red, but the purples are still there. Like this feels more yellow. We're not doing the extra effort to be like, okay, well, if this is the lighting source, like this is the color theory as like how this would affect this base color. It's built in there and we're having fun with it, right? It feels more dynamic. It feels a little bit more cartoonish, but it feels more stylized in that way, where we're embracing what the process naturally has to give us. And that's again where knowing the program is really helpful. And then we have a little bit more of like just a white highlight just to emphasize those areas that would be more reflective. Not saying her face is oily, she's a queen.
We
But
are just over halfway. We're about 37 minutes in. So if you're just
perfect.
joining, Ellie's been peeling back the layers, literally. Well, actually, we're going in the opposite way. We're putting them back on.
Yeah.
In on this Photoshop beta splash screen. So you actually see this if you open up the Photoshop beta. If you missed the first half of the stream, you can always go back and watch all the replays on our Adobe Live YouTube channel. So, but not right now. After the stream, you can go
Not
back
right now.
and
Pay attention to
watch
me.
this. Yeah,
It's my turn.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm live. Come talk to me. This is actually a really great opportunity. I'm ahead of where my script is. Do
Okay.
do we have some questions from the chat we want to answer?
We don't have any questions right now, but chat, please throw them in if you've got some questions for Ellie. We've got a couple of nice comments. A lot of people saying, loved the time lapse of you compositing the environment design, so smart. I'm an illustrator and I've always struggled with compositing full environments, and I love this technique, love the collaging, love all the detail, so organized. Love the thought process. So yeah, lots of nice comments from folks joining us over on Behance and on YouTube. But if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. So
Absolutely. I have like 10 minutes left, and then it looks like we can have a little Q&A at the end, which would be
yeah,
very
sounds good.
exciting. Yeah. Um, this is the hardest part. Chat lock in. Shading is not something I am good at. And like I know a lot of you are probably sitting here being like, why are you lying? Why are you lying to us live on stream? It's true. I struggle a lot in the physical stuff doing that type of shading. Murals were actually very difficult for me because you gotta like basically carve it in. But when we're working digitally, we can cheat so easily. And the best way to cheat is gradients, right? So this is the little side gradient right here where we would get it from this curtain. I have it locked right now, but the beauty of using gradients for shading is I can turn that gradient tool back on and we can actually, oh wait, this one's been rasterized, so that's not a good example. There we go. So down here with this curtain shadow, I could go back in and I can edit that gradient. I can make it bigger, I can make it smaller, I can edit the different shape it has, I can edit the different color it is. And this is another really fantastic tip. When painters are painting, they're never using white and they're never using black. They're always mixing different colors. And when we're illustrating like this, if you look around, there's no black in this piece. I didn't use black for my line art. It's up here. It's like a very deep brown. And I love using non-blacks. Oh, it's actually like a deep pink.
Hmm.
I love using non-blacks because it adds a really great softness. It adds a really great extra layer of dimension and texture. Fun fact, the Ghibli movie, Grave of the Fireflies, is done completely in brown. Like all the line art's done in brown to make it feel softer, right? Like they want this to be a soft telling of a very difficult historical time. But again, because I'm doing the overlay on top of the line art, I could go back in and change that to be a little bit lighter. And you can automatically see like here's what it is when it's like that soft, deep magenta. Here's what it is when it is black. Like we have so much more depth and texture that's available to us when we're not using blacks. And the same thing goes for shadows. I almost exclusively use different shades of purple when I'm doing my shadows, especially for the gradients. So what I usually do is start off with the gradients. Sometimes I'll rasterize them so I can use that smudge tool and move it, or I will use like a mask to get it in the area. I'm just triggering all these different gradients I have across the board. And as you can see, there's a lot of them. We're working in layers here, so it only makes sense that we are adding these different gradients where they are like moving from the front over to the back of the piece as it would in the room because we don't have one light source and we don't have one source of shading or shadows. We need to have multiple, right? So having that flexibility of those gradients is going to really help down the line when we're doing something like this. And then once that process is done, once all the easy ones that I can cheat with the gradients are done, I usually just take like a soft brush, like the number one, yeah, just like a general kind of soft or soft round pressure.
Hmm.
And take that purple, turn on a color burn layer or any other layer or color. Like multiply is a good one, not darken. Usually one of these two. I
Hmm.
prefer color burn, and we're going to take that purple and we're just going to go in and start kind of shading and layering that on itself. And this by itself looks good. As you can see, it's only at 28%. So if I bump this up,
Oh
that
yeah,
looks
now you can see
insane.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that looks absolutely insane. But notice it's not black. It's showing up as red, and that's
Hmm.
because that's that purple on top of that beige. That's color theory and color burn working in tandem to give us something that's a lot more unique. But it's still kind of looking crazy when we have it at like a
Hmm.
higher opacity. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna layer the shadows using different types of blend modes. So this one's multiply.
Hmm.
And this one's like a lot more purple looking when I turn it all the way up, right? But we want that flexibility again. So we have the darker parts on this lighter layer, and then we're layering them on top of itself to add that extra depth without pushing the colors into an extreme. So if you look over here very closely, it's still looking like a little reddish, a little greenish, like it's not quite what a normal shadow would be doing. But that's okay, and that's why we have to be very careful and open to experimentation when we're doing this type of thing, because there is no right answer. There is no correct combination that's going to get you to that level you want it to. You're just going to have to kind of go with your heart. And that is happening on so many different layers. Like over here with the couch shadow, it started off with a gradient, but I had to go back in with like a deeper purple color and go and layer that. And then we have all these different effects happening. Same thing up here for the girl herself, as well as this back area of the room, right? Like we have such a harsh lighting contrast here with our little kitty cat. And that's still coming out as like a magenta purple. But with the context of the rest of the shadows and the rest of the room, it feels so much more satisfying. Like it feels like something that you can actually sink your teeth into rather than just like a black, right? Like it adds to that Maximals feeling and it's adding to this color palette that we're developing over time, right?
Hmm.
And this is why I said in the beginning of the stream, don't lock yourself into a color palette because a lot of these things are going to naturally change once we start adding in these lightings and shadows. So I'm going to go ahead and trigger the rest of this. And this layer is really what makes a big difference, right? And it's called shadow deepening for a reason, right? we have our base shadow layers that are doing like what it should logically be doing. And then we're going to have to put more and more on top of it to make sure that it's actually hitting this point of realism. Okay.
The lady in the
I think,
chat saying, "It's so pretty, I love it."
thank you. Um, this is my favorite part. This is the absolute best part of being a digital illustrator. And this is the final section. This is the vibe section. We want it to be a
We made it to
vibe.
the vibes.
We made it to the vibes. And at this point in the piece, I was pretty much done. Like I was sitting here with myself. I had put maybe I think this was like the 20-25 hour mark into this illustration, which is very normal. I also completely forgot to say pieces like this usually are taking me between 1 to 3 months to do. Like, this is not a single sit down. This
Hmm.
is not like a single week, right? This is something that a lot of love and time and experimentation goes to. And if you're ever commissioned for a piece like this, always give yourself 2 more weeks than you think you're going to need because it's such a labor intensive process. It's great when you could cut corners with like gradients or blend modes or different layer styles, but I really want to emphasize that this is a long process and you should not be pressuring yourself to run through it. It looks like I'm really organized right now. It's organized because I spent a week organizing it, right? Um,
But you also don't want to run through it because you can get a little bit blind to what you're working on too. And it's
oh
important
yeah.
to kind of like step away and then you come back and you're like, why was
Mm,
I using
why?
so much of this color? You know what I mean? Like you get so like
Absolutely. And
blinded
that's
to
one
it.
of the other reasons why we want to build that flexibility in, because you never know what you're going to come back and be like, this doesn't feel right. And you don't want to redraw that. You just want to like adjust a slider or overlay something. So always keep that in mind of giving yourself that flexibility. But at this point in my story, I was about 20 to 25 hours in. I was pretty much done. Like I was looking at it and I was like, okay, I know we know this is going to be like a very small deliverable, so I can't add any more decoration without it just being completely obscured, right? The lighting looks good, the shadows were pushed. I always go too soft on my shadows and then I have my friends come in and be like, "What do you think I could improve?" And they go, "Double the shadows. Like, why is it so light already?" So I always have to do a second or third pass of shadows. But I did my second and third pass. I could have turned it in. I almost turned it in like this.
Mhm.
It wasn't sitting completely right with me. And my friend Sid was the one who was saying like it wants to be so ethereal, and the thing that my eye keeps catching on is these pink shoes. They're so cute and they're so vivid, and like it just happens to be almost in the middle of the piece. So my eye is kind of going like, whoa, and getting stuck there. And it's not a bad thing, but like, this is supposed to be kind of this serene, warm, cozy, ethereal environment. Add more pink. I was like, oh, that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah.
Um, and this is what I call the vibe layer. I teased it earlier.
Love
I
that.
do this with almost every single one of my pieces, and I always forget to do it, but this is the most important part. Boom. Night and
Nice.
day, right?
Yeah. That makes such a
Yeah.
big difference. But also like
Huge.
since you want that to be the focal point, it kind of like it really like pulls you into that piece, you know, having
Right?
more of that
And
color
one
in
of the
there.
beautiful things about this one is if I unlock it and I change it to normal, so we can just kind of see what's happening.
Mm.
The beauty or the brilliance of what I'm doing right here is I just started out as a gradient and then I'm using that warp tool to kind of add this swoosh, right? But this is where your eye is supposed to go.
Yeah.
This is how your eye is entering and traveling through the piece naturally. So we can use this to our advantage to kind of further emphasize how you're supposed to travel through. And it just
It's
looks
really
great.
smart.
It's just cooler, right?
Hmm.
And I really love gradients for this exact reason. I forgot to add the color correction on this easel because that was standing out, right?
Well, you've
And
already
this is
kind of built that, like you said, in your composition, but you're just kind of adding that extra layer of emphasis.
exactly. And when you get to the stage of adding these extra layers of emphasis, a lot of the colors are going to change. A lot of the things like this easel right here are going to feel out of place, and you're going to have to go back in and kind of color correct that initially. And then my last little piece, and this is a personal preference of mine, I love adding highlights, like anime style highlights like
Mm-hmm.
this. And the way I do it is I love using these channels. So I'm doing it all in white as I
Oh, I
would
see.
naturally. And then I can play with these different options I have for that emphasis. And I ended up landing on red for this piece,
Mm-hmm.
but it just adds that like extra piece of like pop and stylistic choice. It's honestly, I'm having a hard time justifying it right now, other than I just enjoy it. I enjoy it. That's my favorite part of each
It
piece.
adds an extra layer of texture to the hair, like a little
Yes,
bit more.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It adds to the hair, and I'm using Photoshop Beta, so I don't have my brushes loaded in. But I love taking a halftone brush, like a dot pattern or a line pattern, and then making a different layer and, like putting a little boopy boop here and then removing the channels just for that extra emphasis. It adds kind of like a comic booky into the Spider-Verse type of feel, and it's so much more fun. There's a lot of pieces that you can do it like that. But again, I knew this one was going to be so small. Like it's maybe 3 inches on the splash screen, right? So it was hard for me as a maximalist to be like, okay, let's not add like all these fun little details. But ultimately, this is where we landed. I am so happy with the results. I'm so proud, and I do genuinely need to say this was one of the easier pieces I've done. Like I do these very intensive hand-drawn environments.
Yeah,
And
I think
I
our
love
mod
I,
shared a link to your chat, Cody. Thank you so much, or your chat, your website, if you want to go check out Ellie's other work.
oh yeah, I got a ton of stuff like this. I've been going through a lot of stylistic changes and like learning how to do motion graphics and
Okay.
branding lately. It's been really fun. But pieces like this are so unique in the way that they are mixed media and you can bring in all these different found assets. And really, the lighting is what makes it. The lighting is what takes this from being like a random collage to feeling like you're in this environment and making a very stylized illustration feel like it belongs in this environment, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And with that, that's about it. My final thoughts that I want to share before a very brief Q&A, because I know we're short running low, is when you're learning any new software, it's very easy to just get intimidated and stick very close to the tutorial. But if you walk away from this session with anything, it should be that experimentation and having a play mindset as you're building is ultimately what's going to lead you to success, right? Like there's so much that's happening in all these different softwares. There's so many fantastic tools. And yes, the tutorial is going to show you a decent amount of those, but you're not going to fully understand it or be able to apply it in all these different ways unless you yourself are willing to go out of your way and play with that, right? Having that flexibility is always going to change that. Knowing that there is no right way to do it, there's no steps to follow, is going to add that freedom and surprise yourself. Enjoy it. The process is supposed to be joyful. The final piece is supposed to be joyful. And always bring yourself to the table because that's what's going to motivate you as an artist to both invest in your piece and to continue investing in your practice. It's easy to burn out, but this is how we fight that. And finally, shout out to Tara and Rocky for bringing me on to this project. Love both of you. Feel free to reach out to me via Instagram or Behance if you have any further questions or want to learn more about this piece. And if you are in Los Angeles for DesignerCon next weekend, June 20th and 21st, come visit me. I'm going to be at booth 532. It's like almost way in the back. Mention this live stream and I will give you a free sticker.
Awesome. Yeah, some
Yeah.
great tips there at the end for folks. We've got
Mhm.
a couple of questions,
Okay,
so
let's
I
rapid
will.
fire.
The first one, and you kind of touched on this, is from a perma. How do you make yourself return to a piece so many times? How do you decide when it's complete and finished?
Um, Vibes,
Vibes.
genuinely. Like if you're sitting there and you still feel like that's when you keep going. If you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, I think I killed it. Like that's when you step away. And like this piece I had to walk away from several times and come back to it. I have a lot of friends that I turn to for feedback. That was a really big piece. I was lucky enough to be in Rocky's care, Rocky, the art director, the one I gave a shout out to. He also gave some feedback and then I handed it off to him. So we got to actually test it versus like the bottom part because I knew that was going to be very saturated, and that might blow out some of the colors. But for the most part, you're never going to be done. You never ever will, and you just really have to trust your gut.
For sure. Okay, the other question, we have like less than a minute. Do you have to adjust anything when you make physical prints of the screen-based version? And this
Oh,
might be
great
a big
question.
question for the end.
Yeah. No, that's a very good question to end it with. The easiest answer is I don't care how saturated it is, turn in a file that's even more saturated,
Okay.
right? It's always going to get a little bit desaturated. The contrast is always going to be a little bit lower than you think. There's a lot of times where I turn it in and it actually turns out a lot better. I personally love risographs. I've been at Punch Kiss Press here in LA a lot more recently. I made this really cute like alien girl piece and the colors came out completely different than I
Mm-hmm.
expected. But I love it. Like sometimes you just have to embrace that process and see what it comes out with.
Yeah, embrace the chaos.
Hmm.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today, Ellie. Everybody can find you on your website, and then I think yeah, Cody just shared your Instagram in the chat. That's where you can find Ellie and keep up with their work. We've got another Photoshop and Express stream coming up right after us with Jana Holder. Yeah, I guess we'll see you next time. You have any final thoughts? Say goodbye to everybody, Ellie.
Peace, love, happy Pride.
Happy
Go out and
Pride. Love it.
celebrate
Yeah.
and have fun.
All right.
Oh, mess
Yes.
is lore. That was it. That's what I wanted to finish with. Mess is lore.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you all next time. Bye,
Bye
everyone.
guys.